No matter how far along into collecting you are, and no matter your budget, there's a pretty good chance that you've at least heard of We Knife Company, and or one of their two budget arms, Civivi and Syncut. That's because as far as market saturation goes, We has become an omnipresent figure in today's knife world. And it's thanks mainly to the fact that they were one of, if not the, first Chinese manufacturer to look around at the horrendous stuff being put out by the competition and say, come on guys, we can do better than this. And better they most definitely have done. I don't think I've ever met a We that I didn't get along with. And We Knife Co. seems to be at their best when they partner with outside designers. And well, in the case of this particular We, those designers just so happen to be at the top of their game. That's because this is the We Knife Co. Ferrum Forge Malice, a hefty, overbuilt brick of a knife. This full-size titanium frame lock oozes that unquestionable Ferrum Forge aesthetic from top to bottom. The looks always had my attention from the moment this piece was announced. It just, was just outside of that price range for me. The scales on my variant here are the stonewashed titanium, but the Malice was also available in We's magnificent-looking marbled, blue-flamed anode finish thing. And if you want to get a good look at that variant, head over to Neve's Knives. He's got one, and I think it's fair to say that he's a big fan. At any rate, those scales are sandwiching this immense titanium backspacer that fills in about 80% of the back spine of the handle, and all along that miles-long backspacer is this nice-looking squared-off jimping. The stonewash on the scales here is done really well, super clean finish, and all over the handle we have this kind of pseudo-contouring from the convex chamfering all around the edges, and not only does it look really good, it helps with comfort in the hand. The pocket clip is this elegant, simple, and perfectly functional piece of milled titanium, and no, it's not deep carry, but it carries really well, goes along with the overall design, and manages to keep this big chunk of titanium well secured in the pocket. When it's closed, the profile on this thing is really wild looking. It's very simple and clean, but that clean profile kind of goes right out the window when you see the insanity that is the deployment slot, but we'll get to that. Now, as I keep saying, this is a big boy. Opened up or closed, in the hand or in the pocket, you will most definitely notice the weight and the overall size. This thick boy is coming in at 6.1 ounces, so if you're a bug-out boy or a Spyderco lightweight kind of guy, I'd probably guess that this one isn't for you. Opened up, the overall length, tip to ass, is 8.15 inches, and that beautiful drop point blade comes in at just a hair under 3.5 inches long. So yeah, like I said, full-size knife. And going back to that magnificent and menacing looking blade, the high polish, satin finished, hollow ground drop point slicer is done up in M390, and I just love the way it looks. The obvious standout on the blade is that previously mentioned deployment slot. Instead of just doing a normal slot, like an empty void used to flick the knife open, the bros at Ferrum Forge decided to spice things up a little bit. So you have that slot milled out into little sections, leaving these aggressive little pillars behind. And I, for one, am all about it, aesthetically. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it gives me almost a predator or an evil robot kind of vibe. And it most definitely looks pissed off all the time, which bodes well for this knife's given name. Who hurt you, Mr. Malice? Who hurt you? Overall, the looks of this piece, they really tickle my pickle. I haven't yet been able to find an angle at which this thing looks anything less than spectacular. And for those of you screaming at your screens right now, yes, you're right. This is a giant titanium Civiviodium. Or is it the other way around? Anyway, the looks, they get top marks from me. Now then, moving right along to the ergos, anyone with any kind of knowledge or experience with Ferrum Forge's designs will know that there's one thing that they take extremely seriously in that shop, and it's ergos. And the fact is extremely apparent on the Malice here. This thing is absolutely fantastic in the hand. That pseudo-contouring I talked about before, paired with the unavoidable ergonomic lines here, make for an insanely comfortable and endlessly secure grip. And you can squeeze all you want. You will not run into any hot spots or pinch points on this one. And thanks to that big old dual-purpose finger/sharpening choil, you can get right the fuck up behind that edge for some detail work. And thanks to that massive and weighty jimped backspacer, this thing feels incredibly well balanced, no matter the grip. Oh, and even though we don't have any jimping on the blade, that spine has been well crowned and knocked down, so it's still just as cozy as can be to rest your thumb up there. It is tall, and it is thick, however, and after a while working with this knife, you might begin to feel some fatigue. But outside of the size and the weight, the comfort level here is seriously through the roof. It's an ergonomic gem as far as I'm concerned. And speaking of shiny things, that blade is a sparkling, shiny death machine. Thanks to that exceptionally well done hollow grind, this angry looking M390 drop point style blade is hair-whittlingly thin, and undoubtedly made to cut. If there's one thing that WE does really well, it's a slicey as fuck blade, and this is no exception. Paper, cardboard, small saplings, woodland creatures, none of it stands a chance in hell. And although that big gnarly deployment slot comes about 50% of the way out the length of the blade, I have not noticed it getting hung up on any material while I'm cutting. And I think that's mainly due to the fact that the finger choil is so big it pushes the cutting edge out far enough that a natural slicing motion keeps the material free and clear of the slot. I've spoken to that special satisfaction that comes from using a big, heavy, overbuilt knife to cut stuff. I've talked about that before, and this piece sends a tingle straight to whatever part of my brain handles weird fetishes every time I cut with it. An excellent, performance-oriented piece of stainless, without question. And finally, the action. Now, before I get too deep into my gush fest, I did pick this up secondhand. And aside from the normal little love marks on the scales, and on the clip, this particular Malice seemed to have developed just the tiniest hint of detent lash somewhere along the line. So the detent feels mushy on the open and the close, and you can kind of move the blade up and down when it's closed up, like it's like the ball's too small for the detent hole in the lock bar, or in the blade. Now, don't get me wrong, lockup is solid as rock. No blade play or lock rock to speak of, just that slightly wriggly, wiggly detent. I spoke with Jared at Neve's Knives, asked him if his had this problem, and he said it did not. So, I'm not going to hold that against the Malice overall, I'm just going to hold it against my Malice in particular. That being said, if fidgetability sits high on your list when making a knife purchase, you will have no buyer's remorse here. We have a nice flipper tab, and even with those detent issues, it flips really well. You can fail it, again, going back to the detent issues, not sure if this is common, but I've had no issues getting that massive slab of M390 to rocket out of the handle when I'm really going for it. And thankfully, that angry and outrageous deployment slot isn't just there for looks. Thumb flicks and reverse flicks are a breeze, and I haven't had any issues with, accidentally pressing on the lock bar, probably thanks to all of the extra room allotted on the handle. This thing flips, flicks, and fidgets with the best of them. And like I always say, 3 modes of actuation is almost always better than 1. It's a joy to actuate, and an endlessly satisfying action overall. So, where can you get one for yourself? Well, you can't. And I am pretty sure they only did 1 or 2 runs of this, all the while calling it a quote-unquote limited edition knife. So needless to say, it kind of came and went pretty quickly. And as far as whether or not more of these will ever show up at retailers, I couldn't tell you. What I can tell you is this thing has been rocking my world ever since it arrived. And I can also tell you that I picked this up on the secondary for well under the original retail price of $275. And if someone like me, who really only ever happens to somehow stumble upon great knives at great prices on the secondary, I'm sure even the most casual search will turn up a few of these on sale somewhere out there. So if your collection is missing a fidget-friendly, heavy-duty, overbuilt, ergonomic masterpiece that is as slicey as it is angry-looking, well, I'm sure I'm not alone when I say that the Malice here might just be the knife you're looking for. An excellent design from Ferrum Forge, manufactured to some top-notch standards, thanks to WE, and overall, it is a winner in my book. So, until next time, thank you for watching. Bye-bye now.